Mark Rogers TV and SEC conference call here to run down the top 5 linebackers in the conference heading into 2015. We first go to Columbia, South Carolina, where Sky Moore burst onto the scene in 2013 as a freshman, led the Gamecocks in tackles. Many publications had him as a first-team All-SEC performer as a freshman. Then last season as a sophomore, 3 interceptions, 82 total tackles. That was 13th in the conference. Now, what has South Carolina fans really salivating about Sky Moore's possible performance in 2015 is the emergence of Jonathan Walton. So that's going to allow Sky Moore to roam from sideline to sideline, make plays, use his instincts, use his speed and talent to make plays. He's going to roam all over the field and be a playmaker in this defense for South Carolina in 2015. Sky Moore at number 5 for the Gamecocks. Our number 4 player, it was very difficult to see him the last time he left a football field. It was the Birmingham Bowl. Just after New Year's Day, Antonio Morrison tore up his knee, and it was a brutal sight to watch. He was writhing in pain after a standout season for the Gators in 2014. He was the first Florida player in 4 years since 2010 to rack up over 100 tackles. 101 for Morrison, 6 tackles for loss, a sack, a pick. He was second-team All-SEC, and he was NFL ready. But that injury, tearing up his ACL, basically made his decision for him in opting early for the NFL draft. So Antonio Morrison comes back for his senior season in Gainesville, and Jim McElwain is looking for that fiery leadership. He's a consistent playmaker, and he's a vocal leader, and he needs him back on the field. Of course, he's not going to make it back for spring practice, but the Gators hope to see him in Game 1 this fall. Antonio Morrison at number 4, one of the tougher players you're going to see, not just because of that injury, but DJ Durkin, former Gators defensive coordinator, says this kid is the toughest I've ever seen or ever coached. At number 3, we go to Missouri, where we've got an outstanding linebacker in Michael Scherer with 107 tackles, but he didn't quite make the list. His Mizzou teammate, Kentrell Brothers, with 122 tackles. That was second in the SEC. More impressive is that he racked up the most tackles per game in SEC competition, almost 10 tackles per game for Kentrell Brothers. And despite being outclassed as a team versus Alabama in the SEC championship game, Brothers had 14 stops in Atlanta. He's very consistent. It's going to be interesting how he and Scherer respond for the Mizzou Tigers this season with the loss of Shane Ray and Marcus Golden up front to tie up blockers. So it's going to be up to those guys to shed some blocks themselves and make some plays. We've got Kentrell Brothers at number 3 in the SEC at linebacker. Going into his senior season, Reggie Ragland coming off a tremendous junior campaign, a real breakout, standout performance by Reggie Ragland. We last saw him against Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl, ripping off the helmet of Jalen Marshall. He didn't necessarily rip it off because he tried to. He hits guys that hard. He's a consistently heavy hitter. Reggie Ragland was 11th in the SEC with 95 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and a pick. And that interception was mighty impressive. Check out the Texas A&M game. Reggie Ragland at the line of scrimmage leaped and caught a ball, not a flare pass out to the flat or a dump off or anything, but a full velocity throw from Kenny Hill. Reggie Ragland jumped at the line of scrimmage and picked it off for the interception. First team All-SEC performer in 2014, Reggie Ragland at number 2. He's probably the safe pick actually for number 1, but I go with a kid out of Georgia. I love this kid's ability for the best linebacking core in the SEC. You go to Athens, Georgia, and you've got Jordan Jenkins. You've got Lorenzo Carter. But I really love Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd with 6.5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss. And this is the stat that jumps out at me. For a second consecutive season, Leonard Floyd put more pressure on the quarterback than anybody in the SEC with 17 quarterback hurries. He is super, super talented. was the Georgia Defensive Player of the Year, despite missing the bowl game against Louisville with a bum shoulder. So he probably could have padded the stats a little bit more. But again, he gets to the quarterback. This kid will be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, but just a junior coming up in 2015. Former Bulldog teammate Ray Drew said about Leonard Floyd, quote, violence off the ball. For offensive linemen, he's a nightmare, quick and powerful. He's fierce off the edge. Leonard Floyd, I expect to be the best linebacker in the SEC in 2015. So again, it's Sky Moore out of South Carolina at number 5. Number 4, Florida's Antonio Morrison. At number 3, we've got Kentrell Brothers of Mizzou. At number 2, Alabama's Reggie Ragland, and the best linebacker in the SEC. We expect, not based on 2014 performance, but based on our projection for 15, is Leonard Floyd of Georgia. Would love to hear what you have to say about the best backers in the SEC right here on Mark Rogers TV.